My name is Amanda, and I'm with the Tampa Hillsborough County Library, and I'm happy to be here with also Amanda with the Tampa Hillsborough County Library. She is going to be your presenter today for Building Backyard Habitats, a very cool, very fun eco-craft program. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off now, and we're both going to turn our cameras off and get into the program, and we will be back for crafting and for Q&A. So we'll see you soon.
Okay, hello everybody. Let's get started. So before we dive into the program, I just wanted to do a shout out for a couple of books that I found that are very relevant to what we will be doing today. Both of these books can be found on Hoopla. So we've got Super Simple Backyard Projects, Fun and Easy Animal Environment Activities, and we've got Backyard Biology, Investigate Habitats Outside Your Door with 25 projects. You can actually find some of the projects I'll be talking about today in these books, along with lots of other ones. So let's get into it and find out what I mean when I say backyard habitats. So what is a backyard habitat and why should I create one? When I talk about backyard habitats, what I mean is creating a space for beneficial wildlife right in your own backyard. A lot of people don't realize how easy it is to help animals with just a little bit of time and effort. It can be something as simple as a bird feeder, which some of you may even have already, or as complex as a whole landscaped butterfly garden. As for why you should create one, everybody needs a little help sometimes, and animals are no exception. When you think about it, humans have taken a lot of animals' habitats away from them when we built our houses, our shopping malls, our roads even. So the least we could do is help them coexist with us in this world that we all share. An added bonus is that you'll get to see some awesome wildlife right from your own backyard. Okay. So some of you may not have a backyard, and you may be wondering why you even came to this program today. I have good news for you. That is not a problem. There are crafts in this presentation, like the toad abode or the nesting ball, that don't require you to have a backyard at all. You can just put them right outside your front door. There are also lots of projects that you can do at the park that could help make the world a better place for animals. So things like participating in a park cleanup day or volunteering to help remove invasive plants that don't belong here. You could also think about making some of these crafts as a gift for friends or family members who do have backyards so that they can place them in theirs. So no excuses, anybody can do these. And now we're going to dive in and see what projects there are out there for you to create. So the first one I want to talk about is the nesting ball. So there are more birds out there than you can possibly imagine. Last I checked, research has indicated that there's 9,000 to 10,000 different species of birds out there. And I chose the nesting ball as our craft today because I am actually not very good at crafting. I bet some of you are way better than I am, and that's okay. But the nesting ball is an easy one because I don't want to make a complete fool of myself on camera. So that is what we are going to do. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera back on so you can see me now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you all of the different materials that we're going to be using today to make a nesting ball. And forgive me as I fiddle around with the camera here, but I want to make sure you guys can see. Okay, so a nesting ball is, like it sounds, a ball that is going to have nesting material in it for birds to use. Now, the nice thing is you can create a nesting ball out of pretty much everything that you have. I chose this fancy grapevine ball that I got at a local arts and crafts store, but you don't need to go fancy. You can actually use something as simple as the bag that onions come in. You know, when you bring onions home from the store, once you've got that empty mesh bag, you can actually fill that with nesting material. So it doesn't have to be a ball at all. Some people get creative and they use those holiday wreaths and they put a bunch of nesting material in the wreath. So using what we have, what I'm going to use today, I've got some cotton balls. Whee, okay. I've got some grass clippings. I've got some natural feathers. So these do not have any dye. These are natural feathers, and we'll talk about why that's important in a second. And my personal favorite, I've got some cat hair that I groomed off of my cats with a brush a few days ago. So one common theme that you'll recognize in all of the things that I picked is that these are all natural materials. The reason that's important, and I'm actually going to start stuffing this thing while we talk. The reason that's important is because birds are actually very sensitive to chemicals. So everything that we're doing today, we're doing to help animals. We don't want to hurt animals. So let's talk about things that you shouldn't use. When people think about filling nesting balls, one thing that people are tempted to use is dryer lint, you know, all that dusty stuff that you can get out of your dryer filter. And, you know, at first thought, that seems nice. But when you think about dryer lint, it has a couple of problems. First of all, it has been exposed to the chemicals in your clothing, the dyes, the detergent, and also it's very crumbly. And where do birds tend to build nests? Outdoors. So outdoors, it rains. And what you don't want to do is give them nesting material that's just going to get soggy and just fall apart. That's not what we're trying to do. So other things that you may want to avoid, just anything synthetic, anything that has chemicals, anything that's very strong smelling, you really just want to keep it natural. And so what I've done is I went ahead and filled up the bottom of this with cotton balls. Now we're going to put some other fun stuff in here. And while I do this, I have a fun question to pose to you all. And feel free to answer it in the question section or just think about your answer and I will tell you what the answer is in a few minutes. What color is a blue jay? Think about that. I'll get back to you with the answer. Some of you may know. Seems obvious. Okay. Well, this looks fun already. And remember, the theme is using what you have. If you don't have grass clippings, if all you have are cotton balls, that is okay. The birds are still gonna love it. The reason I like to use a lot of different materials is because, like I said, there's thousands of different bird species out there. And different bird species have different preferences, you know? Some like soft, cozy nests. Some like warm, prickly nests. Everybody has different materials that they like to build with. So by using lots of different materials, you'll hopefully be attracting lots of different birds. Okay, I think it's time for the cat hair. I hope you guys are still thinking about that blue jay question. I do have another fun question for you all. So think about this one too. If you were to take all of a bird's feathers and all of that same bird's bones, which do you think would be heavier? The bones or the feathers? Another tricky question. We'll see how many of you get it right. All right, well, this looks fun. Got some cat hair going. I think I'm just going to fill it up the rest of the way with cotton balls. And then we'll see. Oh, you know what? We also have string. I forgot to mention. Now, if you do choose to use string, which some birds love, make sure that the string doesn't have any dies, and make sure that you cut it. You don't want to give them super long pieces of string because that could be dangerous for them. But little bitty pieces like these, they might enjoy. All right, and there you have it, a nesting ball. Now, what would you do with this nesting ball? I personally would hang it from a tree. So I'd tie a little bit of string or rope and suspend it from the tree. I try, when we do things for birds, I try to do it up high because that's where birds like to be. Down low can get a little bit dangerous when you think about neighborhood cats and things like that. So I hope you enjoyed this nesting ball. Now I do owe you guys some answers. So for what color is a blue jay? The answer is actually brown. I'm gonna show you my face now. Brown. So the reason that's the case is blue jay feathers, they reflect light in a certain way to make them appear blue. But if you don't believe me, you can look it up, or better yet, next time you come across a blue feather, try holding it up to the light and you'll see that it actually is not blue. As far as, let's see, what was the other question? The bones versus the feathers. Most people would think that bones would be heavier than feathers, but birds have super special, super lightweight bones. So if you take all of a bird's feathers and all of a bird's bones, the feathers are actually going to be heavier than the bones. All right, so those were your fun facts. I'm going to turn my camera back off now and turn screen sharing back on. And we're going to talk about a few other crafts that you can do in your own backyard. Now remember, these range in difficulty. Some are really easy, like the nesting ball I just made. Some are a little harder. So the first one I have here is the bug hotel. Now, a lot of you may be wondering why on earth you would want to attract bugs to your backyard. So here's the thing. Bugs are going to show up whether they're invited or not. But if you provide a safe space for the good bugs to hole up over the winter, they may pay you back in the spring by eating the bad bugs who want to feed on your plants. So if you have flowers or other vegetation that you don't want to get eaten by bugs, you may want to consider this. So the way a bug hotel works is you're going to build or buy a wooden frame like the one you see here on the screen, and you're going to fill it to make a comfy living space where bugs would want to spend their winter. And so that would include things like bamboo pieces like you see at the top of this box here. It could include stems, twigs, seed heads, pine cones, wood shavings, moss, and you know, it's going to attract bugs, but hopefully it'll attract good bugs that don't want to destroy your garden. And there are simpler ways to make this. Some people will just tie short bundles of bamboo together with string and call it a day. That's going to attract certain types of bees. And bees and ladybugs are the types of bugs that we're aiming to attract with the bug hotel. Remember that instructions to build this and all of the projects that we're talking about today are in the attached handout. And this one, I know for a fact, is in one of those books that I mentioned earlier in Hoopla. All right, so next up we have the toad abode. So some of you may be thinking, gross, toads. I get it, but this toad here on the screen is really sad that you don't think he's cute. Toads are actually adorable. They feed on beetles, slugs, crickets, flies, ants. Some larger toads are actually going to eat small rodents and snakes. They'll basically try to eat anything that they can pull into their mouths and swallow. And when it comes to natural pest control, you really can't do much better than a healthy toad population in your yard. Also, because toads are amphibians, they're very sensitive to toxins and bad stuff in the environment because they actually absorb it through their skin. So if you have toads in your yard, that actually indicates that you have a nice, clean, safe space. And if you don't have a backyard to bury the flower pot in, like you see in the bottom picture, you can actually place it in a planter with soil, or you could try a different type of toad abode that sits upright on top of rocks, like the one you see in the top picture, because toads are really good at sticking to the sides of things. So if you just give them that upside down flower pot, they will be perfectly happy living inside of that. Okay, for our last craft, we have sun catchers for birds. Now this is a really pretty one, but what is a sun catcher going to do for birds? Some of you may know that birds flying into windows is a huge problem, actually, that sadly leaves a lot of birds injured or worse. The reason that birds fly into windows is because of the reflection that they see in the windows. What they see when they're flying towards a window is empty sky, because the sky and the clouds, they're reflected in that window. So what this sun catcher does is it breaks up the reflection of the outside in the window and in patio doors and things like that. And it helps birds understand that your window is not something that they can fly through. And this is just one of so many ways that you can help birds in your own space. Keeping a clean bird feeder, like I mentioned earlier, is an option. And providing fresh water, especially in those hot summer months where birds are, making their way across long distances, just setting out, clean water every day can be extremely helpful to them. Now, for this project, there are a couple of different options, and I just want you to know that on the handout, you will see a drill option where you actually have to use a drill, or you can use a drill-free option where you are just tying knots at the top, and that will prevent you from having to use a drill if you don't want to. So these are just some ideas, and one thing that I would like to note is when you are thinking about doing any of these activities, crafts, the main thing that you want to think about is animal safety and how much you're willing to commit to maintenance. So when you're talking about something like this sun catcher here, that's very low maintenance. It's kind of set it and forget it. Maybe it gets tangled up in the wind sometimes and you need to untangle it. But for something like a bird feeder or a bug hotel, there's going to be some maintenance involved as far as cleaning up. For the bug hotel, you're probably going to end up cleaning it once a year. So it's not a huge commitment, but it is something that you have to think about because, gross stuff is going to build up in there. And the last thing you want to do is hurt the animals or make them sick when what you're trying to do is help them. And same goes for something like a bird feeder. You don't want food sitting in there and getting gross and moldy. You want to make sure that you're changing that food out pretty regularly and making sure that you are offering them fresh food. So on that note, I think we're going to turn our cameras back on and turn it over to you guys for questions.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. We do have some questions in already, but there is still time to submit questions if you didn't have a chance to do that. We did have some responses to, we had quite a few people guess that feathers did weigh more than birds' bones. And an interesting answer to the blue jay question, they thought maybe they weren't blue, but they're attracted to things that are blue, and that's why they're called blue jays. Not the answer, but a good guess nonetheless. Our first question is actually, you mentioned that what you got some of the objects from your bird ball from your cat hair. So people want to know, what is your cat's name? What is your cat's name?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. I have 3 cats, and as you can tell, they are all black. Their names are Charcoal, Roxanne, and Rex. And interestingly, I did not name any of them. They are all rescues, and they all came with the names that they had. And I just felt bad changing them because all of them were long-term residents of this rescue, and they were so used to their names already. So those are their names.
That makes sense. That's good. I think that's good.
I do have an
Curious.
important thing to add
Oh,
that I forgot to mention, but very important. So I'm glad you guys asked that. When it comes to using your pet's fur, and dog fur is okay too. Some people will even use human hair out of your brush. But what you
ah,
want to be careful with is that you are not doing this after you've applied flea medicine. I'm sure you're all responsible
cool.
pet owners and applying flea medicine, and that's great, but you definitely don't want to apply flea medicine and then pull off fur and give it to the birds because, like we said, they are sensitive to chemicals.
We have a question. Do you have, or do you know of, or in maybe any of the books you recommended, are there any habitats for lizards or snakes? Which is a good question because we see little lizards all over in Florida. Is there anything we can do to help our little lizard friends?
That is a great question. And I have a couple ideas off the top of my head, and I'm willing to bet that there's a couple of activities in those books that I mentioned. But off the top of my head, one of the things that you can do when I talk about putting out water, I was talking mainly about birds, but you can
Uh-huh.
imagine that a lot of animals are getting thirsty in these summer months. So making sure that you're putting out a shallow bowl, and really shallow because we're talking about little bitty lizards here. So we don't want anybody drowning on our watch. So even, the base of the shallow base of a flower pot or something could do. And what you can also do to help these guys is put a rock into that bowl. So if it is a little bit too deep for them, they can climb up onto that rock and out.
Oh.
Another thing, if any of you are pool owners, you are going to want to invest in what's called a frog log. And this is just something that sits on the side of your pool. And if any frogs or lizards or anybody accidentally falls into your pool, they are going to be able to get back out.
Oh, that's a good point. I've seen that. Yes, yes, that is a good point. Um, we do have a question. I'm going to fold them together. Two questions about the feathers. You mentioned natural feathers. So could you, the first question is, how do you know when you're buying them that they're natural feathers? If you're like in a craft store, is there anything you should look for? Will it say anything special? I mean, obviously, if it's hot pink or turquoise or something, it's probably not natural. But otherwise, how would you know?
Okay, so the first thing is definitely you're going to look at the color. So like you mentioned, if they are just an absurd color like hot pink or turquoise, they're not. They're going to have some sort of dye. So you're looking for natural colors like these. And they usually will be marketed as natural or dye-free. So the one here, and I don't know if you'll be able to read it, but it says natural right there. So you're making sure that it says natural in some way.
And on the opposite end, if it were to say synthetic, then we would know it was human made and it would not be a natural feather. Our second question about natural feathers is, can you collect other birds' feathers in your yard, or would that be off-putting to the birds, like the scent or the pattern or something like that?
No, so it wouldn't be off-putting to the birds. I personally would not go that route only because there are actually a lot of laws about handling
Oh,
migratory and native bird feathers. So you don't want to, especially if you're bringing it into your house, you really just want to leave the outside on the outside and I would just order them just because you don't know necessarily what you're picking up. And you don't want to go and accidentally pick up a bald eagle feather or some other protected species.
that's true. I like that phrase. Leave the outside on the outside. That's a good one. I think I'm going to use that in the future. Okay. We have just a little more time for maybe one or two more questions. This is, oh, it's a favorites question. They mentioned the bug motel. Do you have a favorite type of bug?
Ooh, oh, that's a hard one. So interestingly, I used to be really afraid of bugs, especially
Oh,
cockroaches. But as I began to work with animals and learn more about them, I developed kind of a love of bugs. I kind of love all the animals that get a little less love. But to pick a favorite, I think I'm gonna have to go with ladybugs.
oh, I'm pretty partial to ladybugs myself. And like you said, you know, you can do your research. You can find it in a library book. We have a lot of great resources. Every bug does a job to keep our environment, to keep, you know, the area around you healthy. Or you were saying, you know, with frogs, the toads, all the different things they eat. So having them around can be a very, very good thing. Um, okay, it looks like we are to the end of, or we'll have to wrap up our questions for now. Amanda, do you have that closing slide and we will tell them where to find more information about the library? Okay, so if you, we are coming to the end of summer, but there is still one program. There's a closing ceremony tonight at 6:30. If you want to register, there's still time. There's going to be some cool trivia, maybe a few prizes, and some great recaps of all the cool stuff we've done this summer. You can go and register for that at hcplc.org/summer. If you want to find just our full calendar of events, anything else that's coming on beyond the summer, you can also go to hcplc.org/events. That's going to have our full event calendar. If you have any question about using the library, any of the resources we talked about today, renewing your library card, or maybe even just signing up for your first library card, you can always give us a call at 813-273-3652, or you can contact us online at hcplc.org/contact. Amanda, I want to thank you so much for your fun, informative program today. I will be honest, I learned some things today as well. Those look like really fun crafts, and I really like that the idea is use what's around you. So it's very doable for a lot of us out there. So like I was saying, I had a lot of fun. I hope everybody at home had fun as well. Okay, we want to thank you all so much for joining us, and we hope we will see you at a program very soon. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you, guys.